Hi, welcome to another edition of Small Cap Power Discussion. I'm your host, Jim Gordon. Joining us again, he's back again, is Mike Sieb, president of Getchell Gold Corporation. Mike, welcome back.
Thanks, Jim.
Great to have you here. Hey, folks, we should let you know we got a little bonus here today. We're going to take some of your questions as well. Mike is going to present the highlights of the recently released drill results at Getchell Gold's Fondaway Canyon project. And then we'll have, as I mentioned, a discussion with some of your questions out there. Mike, let's talk a bit about Getchell. Let's have a recap of what you and the team did in 2020 to get us to this point today.
Yeah, no, thanks, Jim. I mean, we started off last year just great. I mean, with the initial acquisition of the advanced exploration stage Fondaway Canyon Gold Project in Nevada, it's a past producer and it also hosts a sizable historic resource. So, I mean, that was just a great start to the year. And then we proceeded to close a series of financings that led us to completing our inaugural 6-hole, 2,000-meter drill program at Fondaway Canyon near the end of the year, which basically then takes us to today. I mean, from a highly successful drill program that demonstrated the continuity as well as significantly extended the thick zones of gold mineralization down dip from surface. I mean, where the gold zones remain both open laterally as well as at depth, and the mineralizing system at Fondaway appears to be more extensive than previously thought.
Well, Mike, let's get right to those drilling results. I'm going to step off the stage, so to speak. The stage is yours, and on the other end, we will answer some questions from our viewers. Mike, take it away.
Okay. Once again, thanks again, Jim.
You're welcome.
So today it's going to be a more abridged version of the presentation. It should take about 15 minutes. If it goes a little longer, it might be upwards to maybe 20. But I'm going to start off today by just giving you kind of a very brief introduction of the project. And then we're pretty much going to dive right in and discuss the results of the 5-hole drill program that was drilled in the central area of Fondaway Canyon, what those drill hole results signify, and what our plans are for 2021. So just kind of going into a brief introduction. On the map on the left, you can see the region in Nevada where 4 of our properties are located. You can see Fondaway Canyon. Fondaway Canyon is a quick 2-hour drive east of Reno. I mean, once you leave Reno, you could probably be right at the drill within Fondaway Canyon in a quick 2 hours. Just of note is Fallon, which is the location of our remote office and core logging facility. And we are currently in the process of acquiring 100% of Fondaway Canyon. It's a very amenable earn-in period over 4 years. So quite nice, and we're kind of well with our last year drill program and the plans for this year. I mean, we're kind of well on our way of earning into 100% of the project. We're kind of zooming into the project proper. From left to right, that represents about 3.5 kilometers, and that is sort of like the known strike extent of the gold mineralization. And today I'm just going to be focusing in on the central area, which I've kind of highlighted in the yellow box. Something to specifically note here is that in 2017, the previous operator published a historic gold resource estimate, and it was fairly sizable. I mean, you're talking of an indicated 409,000 ounces at greater than 6 grams and an inferred of 660,000 ounces at 6 grams. And looking at that window there, 90% of that historic resource just reports into a small area in Colorado, Paperweight, and Half Moon. So that entire historic resource only represents kind of a small window within the window. And the project itself is kind of highly unexplored. Even with substantial historic drilling, most of it was fairly superficial. They only really started to tap into the underlying gold mineralization system that is there. And that's kind of what I'm going to talk about through here in this presentation, is what we found out from the results of our drill program as kind of really what it signifies. So kind of zooming in, this is a panoramic view of Fondaway Canyon. We're looking at the north slope, so we're looking north, and you can kind of see the storied history all the road work to access the historic drill pads, and some of the superficial mining. And this is kind of very superficial mining, small pits like the main pit, as well as the west pit on the side. So kind of just scraping the surface. And what lies underneath is kind of like bigger and better. And that's what I'm going to show you today. So what I'm going to go through in this presentation is you can kind of see where the 5 drill holes are located kind of on the panoramic view. I'm going to start off by just focusing in on one section first, and that's from the Colorado to the Pack Rat. And I'm going to talk about the drill results that happened there. And then we're going to go off to the southeast, and I'm going to talk about the results of hole 4 and what we actually discovered, like 300 meters to the east. So kind of starting off at Colorado, you can see you're standing at Colorado. You're basically looking out southward into the valley. You can see kind of 2 of our drill holes and where they were spotted. One was going off straight on the southeast plain to Pack Rat, and that is the section that I'm really going to be talking about. And hole 3 was not just testing the mineralization on section, but it was also testing the breadth of the mineralization, like how wide it is there. And the results that came back were quite nice. So I'm going to kind of take you back in time now. This is circa 2016. This is as of the date of the publishing of the historic resource. You can kind of see the historic drilling. A lot of it is kind of concentrated just in 2 areas near surface at Pack Rat and Colorado. What I've highlighted in purple is the shell of the historic resource. So you can kind of see how limited that shell was. And they were modeling it at a fairly high grade. They were looking to see if they could potentially mine the high grade zones that are within Fondaway Canyon. And there are quite a number of very significant kind of high grade zones. And I can understand why they were looking at them. But it's really the breadth of the mineralization. It's the high grade mineralization in combination with a low grade halo that kind of forms the entire picture. So the historic resource was kind of fairly constrained. One thing to note is right in the middle of the section, you can kind of see the one drill hole that's HFCO2. That was drilled by Homestake in 1985. And they hit a very substantive intersection, grading almost 1 gram over 100 meters. So that's a very significant intersection. It could not be included within the historic resource because of the distance to the other drilling. And so in 2017, the previous operator, Canark Resources, which is now Canagold, they drilled 3 holes on this section. And you could kind of start seeing what they were doing and actually how successful they were. I mean, their holes 1703 and 1702 hit, greater than 60 meters of, 2 grams or greater than 2 gram gold material, well within, the range of an open pit mine. So this is not very deep. You're kind of looking at about 150 meters to maybe a little over that at depth. And they're tracing the mineralization back to surface. That's also about a 300 meter, apparently looking continuous extent of the mineralization. But if you look to the far left at hole 1701, they were actually testing the vertical extent under Pack Rat. Again, Pack Rat had very shallow drilling, so what's the mineralization doing underneath there? And they hit a very substantive zone of mineralization as well, right at the bottom of their drill hole, and they actually ended it in mineralization. But when we took all this data together and we kind of recompiled it and remodeled it, we don't believe that is basically the vertical, roots of the Pack Rat system. It actually links all the way back up to Colorado, a very nice shallowly dipping thick zone of mineralization. And that's what we wanted to test in our drill program in 2020, is to actually show that 100 meter thick zone of mineralization was there, and it's actually continuous up to surface. So in January, we released the results of 2 of our drill holes, and that was holes 2002 and 2003, and they hit as anticipated, and they stepped out from the historic mineralization, kind of fairly broad zones of good gold mineralization, as you can kind of see by the results. In addition to that, they hit one of those classic, high grade mineralized structures as what I've kind of popped out there from hole 2002, you can see this intersection is grading 6 grams over 22 meters. I mean, that's a very substantive high-grade zone. And that really forms part of the Fondaway Canyon story. It's not only do you have these thick zones of mineralization, but internal to that, and that you can really capitalize on, is the high-grade zones that are there within. And in February, we released the balance of our drill results, and you can see kind of the results from hole 2005 and 2006. And we finished off with one of our best intersections in hole 2005, 1.8 grams over 90 meters. And within there, it's grading about 3 grams over 45 meters. So our last drill hole on this section is actually one of our best resulting drill holes. And now if you follow that red arrow down to the left, like lo and behold, is hole 1701. And you can kind of see how the mineralization projects directly to, and we're hoping through 1701, and it's looking just as strong there. So on this section, completely open at depth and as well as open laterally. So huge success from these 4 drill holes. So I'm going to actually move over now. I'm going to move over to hole 2004, which is about 300 meters to the east. And the rationale for hole 4 was to do the same thing that you saw on the Colorado to the Pack Rat section. It was actually to try and find and ascertain that we anticipated that there was a large thick zone of mineralization underneath there that was not previously identified. So that was the main target, to show that the broad thick zones of mineralization also existed 300 meters over to the southeast. In addition to that, we wanted to drill through the Half Moon Shear Vein, and the Half Moon Shear Vein is one of those examples of the high grade sort of structural conduits that also are within the system. And so on section, and this is on that northeast southwest section, starting up at Paperweight and along the Half Moon trend, you can see the intersections there, very well representative of the high grade mineralization that we see on surface. It represents about a 50-meter intersection through the Half Moon structural zone. Very, very, very nice results. But what happened down below, where a real target was? It came up in spades. Starting off at about 350 meters down the hole, for the next 150 meters to the bottom of the hole that ended in mineralization, as you can see by the last sample grading 8 grams gold over 1 meter. This is proving that there's a substantive zone of mineralization that had not been previously identified. And it actually represents a step out of 200 meters from the last intersection. So again, this is hugely successful. And if you follow the red arrow down to the left, you can then see another drill hole that was drilled in 2017, 1705, that also ended in mineralization. And it's completely on projection of what we've intercepted here in our hole 2004. And so kind of pulling back and kind of looking at the results in compilation, you can see the grading of the gold intercepts and how expansive the mineralization is and how it extends for. If you look from Colorado and you take it through the drill holes along the northeast southwest section all the way through hole 1701, that represents about an 800-meter potential extent, down dip extent of the mineralization from surface. And if you look over where we drilled through the North Fork zone, you can see that there's a 1705 intercept that I highlighted on the section previously that ended in mineralization. And if you trace that back up to surface at the Half Moon, that also represents about an 800-meter down dip extent of mineralization. And so this is kind of what we've modeled as from the drill program. This is in 3D. What we've done is we've modeled the 1 gram intercept. It does not represent a resource. This is sort of like strictly for internal use and our exploration planning and preparation. But what it does is it highlights the potential along the projection of the known mineralization. And so you can readily see where we can start drilling drill holes within the open areas of the red zones to basically prove up a resource, as well as you can see the gaps in between them. I mean, this is really underexplored. I mean, they're completely open laterally and at depth. So this is only a start of what we're doing. And it comes back to what my initial statement was, is that the gold mineralizing system at Fondaway Canyon is a lot more significant and extensive than previously believed. And that's what we're going to be kind of proving up over the next drill campaigns. So talking about our plans for 2021, we are in the planning stage. We're looking at a phase 1 4,000 meter drill program starting in May. We do have the benefit of having a drill secured, and in all honesty, there are a number of companies that actually are not even able to secure a drill this year. It's going to be an extremely busy year, and out of the spectrum of companies working in the region, I mean, Getchell Gold is going to be one of the most active and prominent companies, as you can readily see from the presentation I provided you today. And so that's it for my presentation. Ready to answer questions, and I'm going to pass this over to Jim.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike. Oh, there we are, back on. Technically, we did that perfectly. Wonderful. We're talking with Mike Sieb, who's the president of Getchell Gold Corporation. More information, getchellgold.com. You can also email them, info@getchellgold.com. Hey, Mike, let's do a little recap while also answering some of our attendees' questions. I've got them right in front of me here. Okay, question number 1. How much do you estimate you will raise to finance the 2021 plan?
Mm-hmm. Well, we're sitting fairly comfortably right now. We have about $1.7 million Canadian in the bank account. And we have a significant number of warrants that are in the money, and we anticipate will be converted over the next 12 to 16 months. And it's not insubstantial. You're looking at about $3 to $3.5 million. That'll kind of be a nice streaming funding into the company. So that kind of really sets us up, with a really good basis. But we are going to be kind of, again, I think it's not just going to be this year that we have to plan for. It's going to have to be next year that we have to plan for. So we are looking to raise approximately $3 to maybe $5 million to kind of fully fund the 2021 drill program and have enough money to take us well into 2022. So we're going to be in a very, very strong position moving forward.
Our next question, can you summarize, speculate what the next Fondaway drill program will look like and what you will try to accomplish?
Mm-hmm. If you think back to that image that I showed you with the red blobs, the modeled shell, that's where the majority of the drilling will take place. And we're going to look at proving up some of the historic drilling, as well as continuing to build out and extend the mineralization and really kind of show the world the power of the mineralizing system at Fondaway. So we're looking at just a phase 1 of a 4,000 meter drill program. We are going to segment some of that drilling out to the pediment zone, out to the west, because that is a highly prospective area as well that had some very significant and broad gold intercepts that had never been followed up. So we are going to be kind of hitting some of our priority targets. But as you well know, there's no shortage of drill targets at Fondaway.
Question number 3. You mentioned that you have a crew reserved for May. Will that same crew be available if you decide to do an additional drill program this coming fall?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was incredibly strategic. We needed to secure a drill rig, and not only secure a drill rig for one drill campaign, but for continuous availability. And that's what we did. We have that drill rig starting in May, and it's good till the end of the year. Through the year as well, what we're going to look to is we're going to look to see if we can source a second rig to assist us and start to be able to be as aggressive as we would like to be.
We have another question here from one of our attendees. When can we expect to see an updated resource estimate?
Yeah, we're working on that. We're looking. The earliest would be the middle of the year. We're going to basically compile all the results. The drilling from the previous operator in 2017, as well as our current drilling, has not been incorporated within a mineral resource estimate. So that is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be incorporating those last two drill campaigns and putting it all together.
And what would have to happen with this project to get it to PEA?
Yeah, it's going to take drilling. I mean, that's what it comes down to. We're probably looking at not just maybe one phase of drilling, but probably two phases of drilling to get us to the point where we would have the confidence in the size of the mineralization, as well as confidence in the historic results to incorporate them. So you're looking at probably initiating a PEA probably early 2022.
Assuming future exploration success, what is management's intent as Fondaway approaches feasibility? Have you talked to any larger partners?
Well, I mean, Nevada is a small stage. I mean, Nevada is spectacular for mining and gold production. There's currently 23 gold mines that are currently operating there. It's almost like a fishbowl. I mean, if people aren't aware of us now, they should be aware of us kind of very quickly, because we can take Fondaway Canyon to the next level where there's going to be kind of all eyes on us.
Why were there hundreds of shallow historical holes and very few deep holes drilled?
Yeah, it's a different objective. Historically, they were looking at mining, like mining right away. And at the surface or near surface of Fondaway Canyon, there's an oxidized zone, which is kind of very easy to mine. And so they're really focusing on that top 30 meters and identifying areas where they can kind of come in there, quickly dig it out and mine it. So the vast majority of the historic drilling is extremely shallow, identifying kind of like the top areas that they could potentially exploit from surface. And they didn't, historically, they didn't really need to kind of look deeper at that point in time.
Last question, as I seem to be losing some of my lighting, Mike. Does it make sense to drill deeper? Seems like holes keep ending in mineralization.
And I'd like it to stay that way. It's quite beneficial that the mineralization is at surface. And so, you can readily start modeling it and design it for an open pit mine. But there's a significant number of open pit mines that when you get to the economic ultimate pit limits, you're still not at the end of your mineralization. And then a mine will evolve and migrate, and you'll start to develop the underground mine to kind of continue to follow on the down dip extent. So it's two reasons why we would drill deeper. One is because it is actually mineralization and gold that we can kind of add to the overall mine model. But at the same time, we're really trying to show that there's a lot more gold there, and we're going to be a lot more prominent, and a lot more people are going to take notice.
Mike, always great to have you on. I look forward to having you back to follow up on those high-grade targets. Let's talk about any last-minute thoughts you want to give for our attendees, our viewers out there on, as you said, just kind of a recap on as we finish up the remaining days of 2021 and into 22.
Well, thank you. We have a lot of good information out there. I definitely invite the viewers to come to our website and check out some of the materials. Quite educational and quite enticing, if you ask me, and definitely continue to pay attention to us, because it's kind of, the year is off to a slow start, but the minute kind of May hits and the wheel starts turning, I mean, it's not going to stop.
Great way to go out on that, Mike. We should also mention again, any other questions that you may have. It's info@getchellgold.com, and as Mike mentioned, getchellgold.com is their website. Hey, Mike, great talking with you today. Continued success. Stay safe, stay well. It's Mike Sieb, president of Getchell Gold Corporation, and thank you for joining us on this edition of Small Cap Power, Mike.
Thanks a lot, Jim, and thank you to all the viewers.